ever.
Well, the way to move forward is interoperability.
So we have to do a lot of work as a person, as a community, and as an institution to really have resilience as one of the values of the Filipinos. Yung tunay na resilience na towards improvement.
Building resilience requires sustainability science inspired by transdisciplinary approach.
To be sustainable, you have to be resilient. To be resilient, you have to be sustainable.
Go natural, go with nature's flow. Non-structural or natural interventions, as well as good planning, is the most sustainable.
Finally, we need to harness and strengthen the Filipino spirit of bayanihan.
Isang magandang hapon po sa ating lahat and welcome to the Filipino SDG Action Hour. Samahan niyo kaming pag-usapan ang tropical cyclone rainfall prediction from dynamic to machine learning models. Sasamahan po tayo ng isang batikang atmospheric physicist at professor sa University of the Philippines in Diliman sa Institute of Environmental Science and Meteorology. Siya rin po ay nakapagtala ng mga pananaliksik sa atmospheric monitoring and modeling, specifically po pag-aaral tungkol sa tropical cyclones and air quality. Ito po yung mga tungkol sa mga particulate matters and aerosols at epekto po ng climate change on storm intensity and using satellite and remote sensing tools. Upang bigyan linaw po ang mga napapanong issue ng pagbagyo at pagbaha, pag-measure nito at pag-predict, let's all welcome Dr. Jerry Bagtasa.
Hello, good afternoon. Good afternoon to everyone. So start na po ba tayo? Sige, I'll share my screen. So again, magandang hapon sa lahat. So for this afternoon, I'm going to talk about particularly tropical cyclone rainfall prediction. So explain ko lang yung most of the models that we use. So different models, even observations yung ginagamit. in trying to predict tropical cyclone rainfall. And napaka-importante, di ba? Dahil sa yung mga tropical cyclone rainfall, alam natin ay ito yung pinaka-extreme or pinakamalalang ulan na pwede nating maramdaman sa iba't ibang bahagi ng bansa. So again, I'm Jerry Bagtasa with the Institute of Environmental Science and Meteorology in UP Diliman. Just a quick na introduction, yung tropical cyclones ay most active in the Western North Pacific. So tropical cyclones, they also exist in other ocean basins worldwide, pero dito sa Western North Pacific, kung saan nandito tayo, ay pinaka-active, pinaka-maraming nabubuo, at all year round ito nabubuo. So pagka nabuo ang isang bagyo, na usually, looking at these maps, usually dito siya sa Pacific Ocean, nabubuo, ang tendency ng bagyo ay pumunta sa west at eventually pumunta ng north. And nagkataon na dahil sa geography ng Pilipinas, nasa path tayo ng most of the forming tropical cyclones. Itong mga mapang to ay yung density ng tropical cyclones tuwing ito ay March, April, May, June, July, August, September, October, November, and then December, January, February. So mapapansin natin na actually ang July to September, so this is June, July, August, ang pinakamaraming nabubuong tropical cyclone in the Western North Pacific Basin. However, if we look at the largest blocks dito, by the way, the larger the blocks, ibig sabihin mas maraming bagyong dumadaan doon. No? Kadalasan ng makikita natin mga malalaking blocks sa bandang Taiwan or Okinawa. And kadalasan ng bagyo tuwing habagat season, June, July, August, would be moving around the northeast of the Philippines. However, kahit na pinakamarami ito, yun nga, papuntang Taiwan, papuntang Okinawa. So may tumatama sa atin pa isa-isa but not that many. Pero pagdating ng September, October, November, this is actually when we have the most amount of landfall tropical cyclones in the Philippines. If you look at yung mga blocks na to, medyo maliit lang but bear with me. Pag tinignan yung blocks, diba, mostly nasa east ng Luzon. Yung mga malalaking ano. So kung yung path nito ng mga bagyo ay nasa east ng Luzon, it's more likely na tatamaan yung Pilipinas. So obviously may intense wind and rainfall, pero if we look at the damages, skewed towards yung mas malakas na ulan ito yung mas damaging compared dun sa hangin. In terms of forecasting, kung titignan natin yung forecasting skill, hindi lang ng Pag-asa pero as a general na yung science of forecasting, we actually see a lot of improvements over the past 2 to 3 decades in terms of forecasting yung tracks ng bagyo. So malaking improvements na yung na-forecast ngayon ng 2 days. Or rather, na-forecast ngayon ng 5 days. Nung 30 years ago, you need like 2 days lead time to forecast that amount of certainty. Pero ngayon, pwede natin ma-forecast in 5 days. So yung 2 days sa forecast ngayon, obviously, is better compared to the forecast from before. However, yung intensity ng bagyo, kung gaano kalakas siya tatama or gaano kalakas yung intensify niya, medyo problematic. It hasn't improved much in the last 20 years, unfortunately. So humahabol pa rin itong intensity forecasting. Kaya mapapansin nyo siguro na kadalasan if-forecast siya as a severe tropical storm, then all of a sudden bigla siya nagiging bagyo, tumatama and so on. Kasi hindi yan kasalanan ng Pag-asa. It's really the state of the science of forecasting that we currently have. And then yung rainfall prediction has large uncertainties. Yun ang isang ano. So we can forecast a track intensity to a certain extent, yes, pero yung rainfall napakahirap i-forecast. And and yun nga yung problem dito na paminsan yung rainfall, di ba, siya talaga yung nagbibigay ng malaking damage sa pagdaan ng mga bagyo. So just to quickly show you, itong figure on the leftmost side is total rain, annual total rain ng Pilipinas. So kung hindi nyo alam, ang pinakamaulan na parte ng Pilipinas ay yung eastern side of the Philippines. And particularly, kung titignan natin yung mga stasyon ng Pag-asa, Hinatuan, which is in the Caraga region, ang pinakamaulan na lugar sa Pilipinas. Of course, itong pag-ulan dito, happens around December, January tuwing amihan season. On the other hand, dito sa northwestern Luzon, particularly sa coastal region ng Zambales, ay yung pinakamaulan din na bahagi ng bansa na nasa west, no? Which happens tuwing habagat season. So if we look at the rainfall from tropical cyclones or TC, so makikita natin agad, so TC lang ito, makikita natin agad na ang northern half of the Philippines is much affected by tropical cyclone rainfall. On the other hand, yung southern half, especially Mindanao, walang gaanong ulan from tropical cyclones. Pagka dinivide natin, so itong TC rain divided by the total rain, what we get is a TC rain percentage. And we can see that for most of Luzon, diba, ang percentage ng bagyo ay nasa 40-something%, 50% even. Kaya napaka-importante actually ng ulan ng bagyo. Although hazardous, we also get a lot of fresh water. Isipin nyo, kalahati ng fresh water natin nanggagaling sa bagyo. For some parts of Visayas and the southeast of Luzon, we get around 30-40%, but for Mindanao, it's less than 10%. That doesn't mean na mababa ang ulan sa Mindanao. This is just from tropical cyclones. Kung titignan natin, again, ang pinakamaulan na lugar sa Pilipinas ay actually nasa Mindanao. From 1951 to around 2020, if we look at the overall rainfall na nanggagaling sa bagyo, there's a slight decreasing trend. Of course, malaki yung variability and there are years wherein mataas talaga yung ulan galing sa bagyo. No? And there are years like 2002, 2003, ang baba ng pag-ulan. 1997, which was a severe El Nino year, napakababa din ng ulan galing sa bagyo. But yeah, overall, meron tayong decreasing trend for the whole of the Philippines. Pag tiningnan naman natin yung certain regions, like in this plot, refers to the eastern section of the Philippines. So pag eastern section lang ang tingnan natin, from around 2002, 2003, it has been increasing significantly. So may increasing trend. So same thing for dito sa central regions ng Pilipinas, medyo tumataas din. So maraming reasons pero hindi ko na muna explain dito, no, since para hindi humaba yung ano. So yun essentially overall the story ng ulan nang nanggagaling sa bagyo dito sa Pilipinas. So how do we predict tropical cyclone rainfall? So one of the most ubiquitous na pamamaraan na pag-forecast ng rainfall ay paggamit ng mga weather models. So specifically, ang tawag dito ay mga numerical weather prediction models. So ginagawa, this figure here is dinidivide into three-dimensional grids, essentially yung atmosphere ng mundo natin. And then after i-divide to sa three-dimensional grids, gumagamit ng mga differential equations. So mga equations na ito ay based sa, like for example, yung sa force equals mass times acceleration ni Isaac Newton, Newton's second law, gas law, and some other, mga equations na I'm sure narinig yun na somehow, but these are actually used in calculating what happens, how the air moves. So this essentially, we can calculate the future state of the weather so we can forecast it. So itong mga klaseng models na to makes use of computers like this. So ito yung computer ko sa lab. No? So it's driven by global models and they are computationally expensive. So hindi expensive na mahal yung computer, although mahal din yung computer, but computationally expensive meaning takes a lot of computational resources. So kailangan mo nga, hindi siya tatakbo ng mabilis sa mga typical na computer, kahit na gaming PC pa yan. So yung isa pang problem, so may mga, ito yung ginagamit natin kadalasan, pero may mga limitations siya. And one of the main limitations is that itong models na to, they cannot resolve yung some meteorological processes. Ibig ko sabihin dito, hindi niya kayang i-simulate yung lahat ng prosesong nangyayari sa atmosphere dahil napaka-komplikado, napakaraming proseso. So yung mga iba, kumbaga, ine-estimate na lang by averaging some, cloud formation, averaging this and that. So kumbaga, nagiging estimate. So ito yung isa sa pinaka limitation ng mga models natin even until now kasi in fact, marami pa rin tayong hindi naiintindihan na nangyayari sa atmosphere. So these are essentially estimates, and this holds back yung rain prediction natin. So hindi talaga magiging 100% accuracy yung ano natin, yung mga projections ng ulan dahil sa yun nga may kakulangan doon sa yung sa kaalaman natin sa atmosphere. So yung tulad nung itong mga map na to, kung nakita niyo na, so I produce this daily, in fact 4 times a day, and tuwing may bagyo and sometimes tuwing may bagyo or weather disturbances, so I post this kung nakita niyo to. So it makes use of the weather research and forecasting model, and yung visualization na to, makikita niyo yung each pixel niyan is actually 3-kilometer grid resolution. So again, just to reiterate, yung limitations nito ay kailangan ng hardware and software resources. Not only that, hindi ibig sabihin na pagka may computer at na-install siya, which is by the way mahirap ma-install, no, na pwede mo na siyang patakbuhin agad-agad. So also you have to understand how the model works, what it is saying and so on. So yun, yung human resources, napaka-importante rin. So there's a steep learning curve in understanding how these models work. So medyo mahirap din siyang patakbuhin. Computation takes time and a lot of computing resources. So like for example, itong computer na to, makikita nyo, each blade ng computer niya, each part would cost around 400, 500,000 pesos. And this, kung itong system na to has 7 ba o 8, hindi ko maalala. So, di ba, mahal siya, mahirap i-maintain, mahirap patakbuhin. So hindi siya basta-basta ano. So yun, takes a lot of computational resources. Again, yung sabi ko nga, yung physics in the what's happening, yung mga physical processes are not exactly explicitly simulated inside the model. So medyo estimate yung mga ibang parts ng model, no. And also, yung ulan nanggagaling sa bagyo, yung projection depends on the track of the TC, di ba? Kung yung track medyo umangat papuntang Luzon or medyo bumaba papuntang Visayas, just like yung nangyari, di ba, recently na yung si papuntang Bicol sana and Southern Luzon tapos pumuntang Masbate. Si ano nga ba pa? Paulo ba? Ay, baka mali ako. I cannot remember. Kahit recent lang yun. So yun, bumaba ng konti, yung ulan biglang nag-shift, di ba? Nag-shift lahat southward and so on. So very sensitive yung TC rainfall to TC track forecast as well. So ito yung mga limitations ng ano. So with all that limitations, by the way, let me just show you, meron ding ibang klaseng mga rain forecasting methodologies other than numerical weather prediction. So yung isa rito ay yung tinatawag na ETRAP. So si ETRAP, gawa siya ng NOAA, not the NOAA na local, NOAA sa US, is they look at satellite images of using satellite-borne radar. So looking at the rainfall, so gagawin niya, na nakunan niya yung rainfall, di ba, ng bagyo. Tapos may track forecast, right? So gagawin niya, igagalawin niya yung rainfall na yon according do sa track forecast. So parang tine-trace na yung kung nakunan yung bagyo rito, tapos alam natin yung bagyo papuntang ganon. By the way, si Halong to yung ngayon na kakalagpas lang ng Japan. So tatrack niya ng ganon. So iuusog niya yung rainfall na na-measure niya, and then it has a 24-hour lead time forecast for rainfall. So ito naman, sa Japan to, sa JMA, yung radar na ginagamit nila, so after some time, meron silang 1-hour forecast of radar. So yung kung gumagalaw yung mga ulan like this, so ang gagawin ay i-move lang nila towards time yung movement ng mga clouds to forecast rainfall. So dati may ganito sa Project NOAA, tawag sa kanya Climate X, pero hindi na siya natuloy since na-stop si NOAA. Recently, I'm sure everyone's familiar with this, iba yun sa Pag-asa. Yung sa Pag-asa, just last year, I believe, na nag-start maglabas ng mga rainfall forecast. Parang 3-day rainfall forecast siya whenever, particularly kung may dadaan na bagyo. No? So ganun din, may moderate, which is 50 to 100 millimeters, 100 to 200, and then more than 200 millimeters during extreme weather disturbances. But other than this, for a very long time, si Pag-asa, meron din siyang numerical weather prediction model, just like what I mentioned earlier. Medyo nakatago lang sa website, pero this is actually accessible in their website. So nakikita din yung rainfall. Sa TV, lumalabas yan sa GMA, for example, sa ABS, si Ariel. Kaso yung ginagamit sa TV ay medyo low resolution model. So they don't really increase the resolution just like yung sa Pag-asa. Sometimes, tapos gumagalaw pa sa TV. Of course, yung sa TV, kailangan everything's moving. Otherwise, iba, people may think na na-stop yung TV. Eh. So, while everything's moving, parang mahirap ma-discern kung ano talaga yung rainfall. So, for me, it's really difficult to understand yung rainfall forecast sa TV. No? Dapat makinig ka talaga doon sa sinasabi ni Ariel halimbawa. So yung windy, I'm sure everybody is also familiar with this. So you can also see the rainfall. But again, yung rainfall ni windy is similar to yung sa mga TV. Na short duration tapos very low resolution kasi mga global models yung ginagamit siya. So can be useful to a certain extent pero kung ako parang hindi ko just look at the Pag-asa. Yun yung masasabi ko. Look at the Pag-asa rainfall forecast kasi mahirap ma-discern din itong sa windy. So, yun. These are some of the TC rain forecasting tools pero ang problem dito is yun nga computationally expensive, right? So meron isang way para mas mabilis ma-forecast yung TC rain and that is called the analog method. So yung analog forecasting technique is based on the notion that history repeats itself. So ibig sabihin nito, kung may dating bagyo na dumaan, say for example sa Central Luzon, dumaan yung bagyo. So and then na-measure natin, di ba, yung ulan sa Central Luzon, sa Manila and so on, na-measure natin. So alam natin pag doon dumaan yung bagyo, ganito yung ulan. So next time, a few years later, maybe 20 years later, may bagyo na similar yung track, dadaan ulit ng Central Luzon. Almost same intensity, same ano. So pwede nating gawin ay we just look at the rainfall observation 20 years ago. Ano ba yung rainfall nung itsura nun? So most likely, it will be the same distribution as before. Although not exactly kasi each tropical cyclone will have a slightly different rainfall distribution even if they have the same tracks. So hindi exactly the same, no? Pero more or less, pwede natin kunin from sa past natin, from historical data. So again, the basic assumption is that TCs with similar tracks produce similar rainfall amounts and distribution. So let me just quickly show you, halimbawa, so per TC track, meron tayong database ng rainfall forecast, di ba? So ito halimbawa tumama ng Samar, meron tayong rainfall map. Ito tumama ng kung saan man, Batanes, may rainfall map. Ito tumama ng kung saan, may rainfall map. So for all of the TCs that covers the Philippines. So kung meron tayong isang track na ganito, we call it the target track. Kung may target track tayo, then hanapin natin lahat ng may similar na tracks dito sa target track. So if you can see, may mga lighter tracks na nandito, no? So each of these similar tracks from the past correspond to may corresponding rainfall map siya. So we simply collect all the rainfall maps corresponding to each of these similar tracks and then i-average lang natin. Pag lumabas yung average, turns out na similar siya sa totoong recorded na rainfall. So dito for example, itong nasa left side ay satellite derived, itong nasa right side ay gamit itong method na to. So yung satellite derived, pinapakita niya sa Northern Luzon, dito sa method na to sa Northern Luzon din. So ito satellite derived for Karen noong 2016, ito naman yung sa analog method and so on. And turns out, actually kaya niyang makuha more or less yung distribution. And the thing with this is that it can calculate this very quickly. And when I say quickly, like 1 second, kayang i-calculate. On the other hand, if we make use of the numerical weather prediction model takes around 2 hours. So imagine nyo, di ba, 2 hours compare versus 1 second, kaya agad makuha yung, ma-calculate yung ulan. So I published a couple of papers on this. Yung one is the analog rainfall forecasting using interpolated data, rainfall data. Dito naman sa isang paper na few years ago, using satellite data naman, GSMAP and GBM product. So it's easy to adjust itong mga models na to. They have really fast run times. And also involves track uncertainties kasi yung track, kahit pag gumalaw yung track 50 kilometers to the north, 50 kilometers to the south, essentially incorporated siya kasi let me just go back. Kasi yung mga similar tracks hanggang 100 kilometers away from the actual track, okay pa rin yung lumalabas na information. So, kaya nga na-incorporate na natin yung track uncertainty. Yung limitations naman, obviously, it's constrained by historical data kasi hindi naman talaga kumpleto yung data natin from the past. Regions of intense rainfall are smudged. Ibig sabihin kasi sabi ko, di ba, ina-average natin yung ulan. So, pag in-average natin, yung mga certain places na may mababang ulan for some similar TCs, may mataas na ulan for some similar track TC. So, nangyari pag in-average, hinihila yung mga extreme values pababa. So para siyang smudge, para mong ini-smudge. So hindi makuha yung extreme values of rainfall, which is actually very important in TC rainfall forecasting. So yun nga, mahirap kunin yung extreme values. So this brings us to machine learning. So yung machine learning still uses the notion of yung history repeats itself. Pero ang ginagawa rito, iba yung way ng pagkuha ng information. So dito sa machine learning na ginawa namin, it used the random forest na method at saka self-organizing map. So let me just explain. So yung self-organizing map, ang ginawa lang dito is to parang cluster yung iba't ibang types of PC track na meron tayo sa Pilipinas. So makikita nyo, medyo maliit lang pero more or less maaninag naman yung mga tracks na tumama ng Southern Luzon, Visayas, mga tracks na tumama ng Visayas region, mga tracks na nag-grace lang sa North Eastern Luzon and so on. So nakuha namin 25. So ang ginagawa rito is pag may bagong bagyo, meron tayong track forecast, titignan muna kung ano yung closest dito and then this has bearing dun sa forecast natin. Yung next na method naman is the random forest method. So si random forest, it's a decision tree regression algorithm. So ano ibig sabihin nito? So, 'di ba kung yung analogy ko nga rito, kung may bibilhin tayong gamit, 'di ba? May mga tanong tayo sa sarili natin 'di ba? So unang tanong, pasok ba 'to sa budget ko? Kung yes, yung next na tanong naman, gusto ko ba 'to? Yes. So next na tanong naman, kumbaga, sulit ba 'to? Tatagal ba? Ilang taon 'to tatagal para magagamit ko? So 'di ba may mga questions tayo? And then eventually, i-weigh natin yung mga sagot natin doon sa different questions. Finally, we have di ba? Meron tayong parang kumbaga magvo-vote tayo sa sarili nating pag-iisip tapos mag-yes or no tayo kung bibili natin isang bagay o hindi. So dito ang question is gaano kalakas yung ulan dito sa lugar na to, di ba? So ang mga tanong would be nakasulat dito. Medyo maliit pero it's in the next slide. So essentially, yung point lang dito is ang tanong is malapit ba yung bagyo kung nasaan ka? Or malakas ba yung bagyo? Or gaano kalaki yung bagyo? Gaano siya kabilis? So ito yung mga tanong. So yung mga tanong obviously is related to the tropical cyclone. And pag nasagot tong mga tanong na to, hindi tayo yung sasagot. Si random forest yung sasagot yan. Bibigay ni random forest sa atin ay uulan dyan ng ganitong amount of rainfall. So yun yung parang pinaka rito. So paano niya malalaman kung bakit ganito yung rainfall na huhulaan niya? Kasi binigyan natin siya ng past historical data. So ganoon naman ng machine learning di ba? Yung titignan niyo yung past, pag-aaralan niya yon, tapos magbibigay siya ng sagot doon sa algorithm na meron siya. So ito yung mga parameters ng bagyo na may kinalaman. So if you see a red line, ibig sabihin na ano siya, fitted na linear regression, na ibig sabihin significant yung ano na yung regression. So for example, passage duration of a tropical cyclone. So yung tropical cyclone, gaano ba katagal na nagstay sa lupa? Kung matagal siya nagstay, halimbawa, nagstay siya ng 8 days, mas mataas yung ulan niya. Pag nagstay naman siya ng 1 day lang, mas mababa yung ulan niya. And so on sa middle, di ba? So, ibig sabihin, pwede siyang itanong and it can result in a good answer later on dun sa amount of tropical cyclone. Yung speed, gano'ng kabilis yung bagyo, which is related to the duration, di ba? Kasi kung mas mabilis gumalaw yung bagyo, sandali lang siya nag-i-stay sa lupa sa Pilipinas. Meron din yung sinuosity. Ibig sabihin ng sinuosity kung gaano ka-curve yung galaw ng bagyo. So may mga bagyo na diretso, di ba? Straight. It will just pass through Luzon in a matter of half a day. Meron din naman bagyo na tatama ng, say for example, ng Samar, biglang mag-serve siya papuntang north, so tatama ng southern Luzon, tatama ng Luzon, and so on. So matagal yung pag-stay niya, di ba? So sinuosity, ibig sabihin din, the higher the sinuosity index, mas malakas din yung ulan. Yung latitude, turns out na ganun din. The higher the latitude, mas malakas yung ulan. So in fact, mas malalakas yung ulan sa Luzon compared sa Mindanao, which I showed you kanina, di ba? Na yun naman talaga yung case. Pressure, yung lakas ng bagyo, also yung distance. Itong mga to, kumbaga, pwede silang gamitin na yung tanong, di ba? Na gaano kalayo sa'yo? Ano yung latitude kung nasan ka? Ano yung central pressure ng bagyo? Ano yung sinuosity ng bagyo? Ano yung passage duration? Ano yung speed niya? So these things, pag tinanong, siya yung ipapasok sa random forest algorithm. And turns out, ang mga importante na mga parameters ay yung distance natin from the tropical cyclone. And this actually, 'di ba, makes sense for a lot. 'Di ba? Kung malapit ka sa bagyo, syempre mas malakas yung ulan, no? Pag mas malayo ka, hindi ka ganong mauulanan. Duration is the second most important, then latitude, and then yung sa self-organizing map clusters, and then longitude, and so on. So ito yung mga kung gaano ka-importanteng tanong in determining yung rainfall. So we recently na-publish itong paper na to. So machine learning kasi AI kasi machine learning siya, no. So just very quickly, so ano ba exactly yung AI? Kasi yung with all the nakikita natin sa media, lahat na lang 'di ba may AI. So halimbawa meron coffee machine, tapos sabi sa coffee machine, AI-powered coffee machine. So pag pumunta ka sa coffee machine, gusto mo ng cappuccino, pinindot mo yung cappuccino, lumabas cappuccino. Next time naman, gusto mo latte, pag pindot mo ng latte, lumabas latte. Hindi AI yon. So it's not artificial intelligence, but rather it's automated. So it's just automated. AI has nothing to do with kasi lahat ng ngayon, di ba, dinalagyan ng word na AI. So ang coffee machine, paano siya magiging AI? So halimbawa, ang coffee machine, pumunta ka pag umaga, Americano yung pinipindot mo. Tapos pagkahapon naman, latte yung pinipindot mo. So 2 beses ka magkape, halimbawa. So kung after a few days na ginagawa mo yan, paglapit mo next time sa coffee machine, wala ka pang pinipindot, si coffee machine, maglalabas na siya ng Americano pag umaga. Tapos maglalabas na. So naisip na niya, it learns from what you're doing, and then later on, gagawa siya ng sarili niya. And then later on, kung AI talaga, sasabihin niya na hindi lang latte yung bibigay ko sa'yo. Latte with some foam, some whatever. Kasi feeling ko yan yung magugustuhan mo. Kasi 'di ba, it learns. So that's AI. So dito sa machine learning na to, the more historical data that we put in, it learns from that, and then it changes yung algorithm ng random forest, and then changes the forecast eventually. So yun yung AI aspect nitong na natututo siya the more data that we put in. Kaya may data. No? So let me just show you some examples wherein this is yung AI model. This is in-adjust lang, may bias correction lang konti na AI model compared to satellite and then compared to the dynamic model, numerical weather prediction model. So, of course, may itong numerical weather prediction model takes a lot of time. Sabi ko, di ba, mga 2 hours to calculate. Samantalang ito takes around a few seconds to calculate itong AI model. So, pag tinignan natin, it's actually similar to the satellite derived. Same thing with this, for example, kay Ulysses. Of course, may differences but similar. So, yung qualitative comparison is one thing, pero if we do this quantitatively, we can see na medyo maraming information. So let me just show you yung mga quick na ano na lang. So for example, yung sa skill niya na probability of detection. So this is a skill wherein mini-measure kung gaano ba kagaling na tumama siya. So if we look at the probability of detection of the AI model and the numerical weather prediction model, they're actually the same. May difference pero not statistically different, significantly different, no? So essentially the same. Although itong sa false alarm rate, kung ano yung hindi naman talaga uulan pero ang forecast ay uulan, medyo talo si ano rito, AI model compared kay numerical weather prediction model. Pero again, di ba kinukumpara natin dito yung computation time isa yan eh. Dahil sa forecast, gusto mo, mabilis yung lumabas yung forecast. Pero other than this, pag tinignan natin yung, hindi lang yung ulan overall, pag tinignan natin yung ulan kung saan we focus on the extreme rainfall, diba? So kung yung rainfall na 50 to 100 millimeters, not so extreme kung bagyo yan. Yung mga 50 to 100 millimeters sa bagyo, nasa gilid lang ng bagyo yan. No? So panalo si numerical weather prediction model. Mas taas yung skill niya kaysa kay AI model. But if we look at extreme rainfall, like 100, 150 millimeters, 150 to 200, 200 to 250 millimeters, panalong-panalo si AI model. So AI model actually is very good apparently in getting extreme values of rainfall, which is very important kasi di ba paminsan gusto natin yung extreme rainfall. We don't really care about yung paambon-ambon sa gilid ng bagyo kasi hindi naman talaga siya devastating. Pero yung devastating ay yung mga malalakas sa ulan, and turns out that this AI model that we developed is actually better than numerical weather prediction models in predicting extreme rainfall values. So let me move to another, slightly a different topic now. This is about TC rapid intensification. So in rapid intensification is defined as technically is a 95th or 99th percentile change in maximum winds in a 24-hour period. Ibig lang sabihin nito ay kung sobrang bilis ng paglakas ng isang bagyo in 24 hours, gaano kabilis? About 55 kilometers per hour yung inakyat. So kung ganun kabilis yung pag-akyat, ang tawag natin rapid intensification. So may technical na ano siya, kumbaga sinusunod. Pero I'm sure, di ba, narinig nyo na ito sa mga forecasts in some of the bagyo before. So pag tinignan natin from 1951 to 2020, of all the landfalling PCs na meron tayo, 82%, by the way, sorry, before ko tuloy yun, 1951 to 2020, 32% ng lahat ng bagyo in the Western Pacific nag-rapid intensification. Tapos sa lahat ng bagyo na nag-landfall sa Pilipinas, 28% nag-rapid intensification. So more than a quarter, almost one-third ng bagyo nag-RI. So hindi naman bago yung rapid intensification, no? Ever since meron ng rapid intensification, medyo recently lang siya na ano sa media. So marami-rami pero hindi ganun karami, di ba? 28%. So if we look at the landfalling PCs, kapag nag-RI ang isang bagyo, okay, nag-RI ang isang bagyo, may 82% chance na typhoon siya. So in short, almost lahat ng typhoon or super typhoon sa atin ay nag-RI. So ibig sabihin, pag nag-RI isang bagyo, most likely typhoon siya magla-landfall. So, ibig sabihin malakas yung bagyo, di ba? On the other hand, meron bang mga typhoon or super typhoon na hindi nag-RI pero naging typhoon sila? Yes, 12% lang. So, bihira. Bihira yung mga hindi nag-RI tapos nagiging full-blown typhoon. Most of the typhoon are RI. So, we know that if a tropical cyclone underwent RI, alam natin na most likely it will be a typhoon. Ibig sabihin malakas siya. But there's poor predictability of rapid intensification. So tinignan namin from 2013 to 2021 yung mga forecast ni JMA at saka JTWC. Unfortunately, wala kaming archive data na forecast ni Pag-asa, so we can't do the analysis. Pero similar naman more or less yung kay Pag-asa with JMA. So using itong contingency table, ang i-summarize ko lang no na sa JMA halimbawa yung 24-hour lead time forecast, you have 17 times sila na tumama sa forecast na may rapid intensification. On the other hand, 55 times na mali. Pag 48-hour lead time forecast, mas mababa yung mas konti lang yung tama, marami yung mali. And in fact, pag 3-day forecast, walang tumama na mag-RI. Lahat puro miss yung forecast. Sky JTWC, ganun din, di ba? Ang point dito is, yung mas marami-rami yung tama, 17, slightly higher, pero dami rin yung mali. Ang point is, ang daming hindi nakukuha yung rapid intensification. And the reason for that is because we actually have limited understanding on the mechanisms of rapid intensification, even until now. And there's so many people worldwide looking at this. In the past, siguro 3 years, ang daming publications on rapid intensification, trying to explain rapid intensification, pero unfortunately, hindi pa siya nagtra-translate sa better forecasting. Hopefully, in the near future, makukuha yon. So, the same random forest technique in-apply namin dun sa yung sunod-sunod na bagyo last year, nung October, November of last year. So si Trami or si Christine, yan yung nagpaulan sa Camarines tsaka sa Batangas, kung naalala nyo. Si Marce, si Nika, si Pepito. Si Pepito yung malakas pero hope nung tumama siya, not so devastating for Metro Manila. No? Si Ophel. So ang ano rito is mag-RI ba sila o hindi? So making use of the random forest algorithm. So dito pagka may pumula, ibig sabihin mag-RI. Pag may pumula na more than 4 times. No? So tama nga si Christine, hindi siya nag-rapid intensification. Although may konting pula rito. Pula means na-tag siya as possible na mag-rapid intensification. Pero I noticed that if there's only a few, like 2, 3 na pula tapos bumalik sa pagkaitim, ibig sabihin low chance of RI. Si Marce, nag-rapid intensification niya. So pagdating niya rito, few days, couple of days before making landfall, biglang all of a sudden, puro pula. Tapos nag-RI talaga siya. Dito kay Nika, nagpula siya pero konti. So yung actually the forecast told us na baka less chance pero in fact nag-RI si Nika. So this is a miss itong part na to. Si Pepito nag-rapid intensification and from the very beginning, very far away from the Philippines, puro pula. So sinasabi na niya, mag-RI to, mag-RI to, mag-RI to. And in fact, it underwent rapid intensification. I think several times pa nga eh. And same for Ophel. Puro pula and in fact nag-RI siya around this region here. So I've been trying to apply this methodology in mga bagyo. More or less, wala pang enough na bagyo kasi to teach the model and then to assess the model sa mga ano. So habang siguro yung mga susunod na buwan, pag yung mga bagyo to try this and then hopefully get a better result and have a better idea on the skill of this forecasting model. So making use of the same random forest tool. So dun sa result ng RI prediction, just knowing the track, yung forecast track ng RI, there's an accuracy of 64% and a probability of detection of around 70%, no? On the other hand, may false alarm rate. Yung false alarm rate, ibig sabihin yan na sinabi ng model na mag-RI pero actually hindi naman nag-RI sa reality. So ito yung medyo mataas ang point natin. Ang point dito is itong value na to, yung accuracy, medyo comparable na yan with other prediction tools, pero medyo mataas itong false alarm rate. So the point is pababain ito eh. But if we include some other parameters like sea surface temperature, wind shear, and so on, so pwedeng pataasin yung accuracy. However, yung false alarm rate medyo mataas pa rin. So yun nga, yung point is we want to move that number to a lower. So to summarize, most rainfall forecasts are based on dynamic models yung nakikita natin. But there's what we call the analog method in which it's based on historical data. It's fast, efficient. Of course, there are limitations, pero sometimes it can be an added value dun sa mga existing na mga dynamic models. Machine learning is better at exploiting patterns of historical weather data. So there's a lot of potential in using machine learning. And this is just a start. Actually, wala akong knowledge na may ibang publications on AI machine learning sa weather forecasting. So there's still a lot of studies to be done. Analog and machine learning together appears to have good skill in getting extreme TC rainfall. So can have added value talaga in the forecasting suite that we have. It's also being tested on rapid intensification of tropical cyclones, and tinetest din namin sa wind instead of rainfall, wind naman, and hopefully we get results in the next few months. So that's it. Thank you for listening.
Naku, maraming salamat po, Doc Jerry. Totoo lang po, sir, bilang isang avid fan po ng sci-fi, napaka-interesting po na inyong topic today. So naalala ko tuloy yung napanood kong movie na Geostorm. Hindi ko alam kung alam niyo.
Yes, alam ko yun. Alam ko yun.
Yes, sir. So ayun po. So medyo na yung aking memory about sa magandang topic natin for today. So we're going to open right now our platform sa mga questions po ng ating mga panelists and ating mga guests. Isa po to isang napaka-interesting na topic. Imagine po natin, kaya po palang sagutin ng science, math, and physics. Akala natin subject lang siya, pero yung pala isa siyang tool na napaka-effective na pwede sumalba ng buhay. Okay po? Do we have any questions? Ito po, galing po kay sa ating pong audience, si El Bayrante. Hi, Doc Bactasa. How does climate change affect the TC rain prediction in the next decade?
Yeah, so kung pinag-uusapan natin ay yung analog method na nagbe-base sa historical, so laging tanong yan ng ng mga reviewer habang pag yung sa papers na paano mo ma-incorporate yung climate change. So pag analog, kasi nakatingin tayo sa history, hindi natin ma-incorporate unfortunately. And then problem yan di ba? Kasi yung mga nakukuha nating ulan ngayon ay unprecedented, di ba? So ilang beses paulit-ulit, every year may unprecedented amount of rainfall. So mahirap talaga. So we have to rely on dynamic models. So si dynamic models, yung init ng karagatan, yung dagdag na moisture sa hangin na pasok yan sa model eh. So they have a better chance of getting itong mga forecast na to. Pero yun nga, may yung limitation ito nung analog method.
Opo. So ito lang isa lang pong bilang sabi ko nga po, isa po kong avid fan po ng mga sci-fi and mga thriller, mga scientific thriller. Posible po ba yung sa mga pelikula na papanood natin wherein they can stop typhoons? Nakita po natin, sir, may mga technology po na magbabaksak sila ng nuclear bomb o kaya ng laser para ma-stop yung eye of the storm. Posible po ba siya in the near future? Or is there,
no.
do you think, sir, hindi po?
So, explain ko. So, ginawa yan ng mga Amerikano. So, in the 1940s. So, tawag sa kanya Storm Fury. So, Fury. So, ginawa nila, nagpalipad sila ng eroplano, sila parang cloud seeding pero sa bagyo. And then yung nangyari nun is may isang bagyo sila na sinid, thinking na hihina. Tapos the last moment, yung bagyo lumiko. May tinamaan na isang lugar sa US, nagreklamo yung mga tao doon sa tinamaan. So sinisisi yung military, di ba? Pero sa totoo lang, yung military, if we look at it now, 1940s yan eh. If we look at it now, actually wala silang nagawa sa bagyo. Yung bagyo talagang lumiko lang. So even until now, kahit yung mga simple na yung thunderstorm clouds na sinisid, questionable yung results eh, actually. So, isang maliit na cloud lang. Kasi ang isang maliit na cloud, pag tinignan natin, maliit lang yon, parang bulak na cloud. It's actually 1 kilometer wide. So, malaki siya, malaki siya. So, and maraming tubig yon. So, how much energy, how much seeding do we need to do para mapalit natin yung isang maliit na cloud? So yun nga, ginagawa siya, pero medyo uncertain and hindi tayo sure sa results. So what more kung bagyo na pagkalaki-laki? So parang ngayon wala tayong way to really to manage yung ano. So sa Japan ngayon, sa Yokohama University, may consortium kasama ang UP, no? Na tinitingnan ano ba yung mga pwedeng pamamaraan na pahinain yung bagyo. So yung isang ang ginawa nila na simulation ay maglagay ng mga barko sa dagat kung saan dadaan yung bagyo, tapos maglagay ng mga windmill. So in short, hindi lang sa pag dumaan yung bagyo, yung si windmill, papahinain niya yung hangin eh, di ba? All the while, ina-absorb niya yung energy. So pwede mong i-save sa battery yung energy, tapos babalik yung mga barko, pwedeng gamitin yung energy for human needs, for human purposes. So may mga ganun sila. Kaso maliit eh, masyadong maliit yung percentage na nababawas sa hangin. So yeah, parang ngayon, parang mahirap. And of course, kailangan muna natin intindihin more ang mga bagyo before natin maintindihan kung paano natin mapahina, right? And the thing now is that hindi pa natin siya totally naiintindihan.
Pero sir, from history po, kung iaano po natin yung historical data, masabi po ba natin sir na mas gumagrabe po ba talaga ang ating weather condition sa panahon na ito? O from time, mga prehistoric, meron masabi na pareho lang naman. Wala ba talagang significant change?
May changes. Ang changes ay percentage-wise, mas marami ngayon ang malalakas na bagyo. Pero overall sa mundo, actually bumabawas yung bagyo, yung number. Dito sa Western Pacific, hindi gaano nagre-register yung pagbawas. Pero ang expectation sa climate change ay mababawasan ng bagyo. Tapos, since mababawasan ng bagyo, tapos mas mainit ang karagatan, so yung iilan na magfo-form, they get the energy, yung untapped energy ng warm ocean, di ba? So iilan na lang kasi sila eh. Kaysa dati naghahati, halimbawa naghahati 20 na bagyo. Pero kung 15 na lang yung nabuo, sila na yung maghahati doon sa warmer ocean, mas maraming energy. So ibig sabihin, each of the tropical cyclone that will form will have more energy. And nakikita na natin yan in the past 3 decades. Dito sa Pilipinas, yung percentage ng bagyo na may 150 kilometers pataas na wind, mas dumadami yung percentage niya.
Po. Yes, Academician Ruben.
Thank you very much. First of all, Jerry, congratulations. Napakaganda naman ng iyong presentation. At napakadami mong naisiwalat sa mga katulad naming 86 na ay kakaunti na lamang ang pumapasok. Pero meron ako ilang mga katanungan. Ang unang tanong ko, Jerry, ito. Ang mamahal na equipment nyo, ang swerte naman nyo at nakakakuha kayo ng pera sa gobyerno o kung sino man ang sumusuporta sa inyong mga ginagawa na talaga naman kailangan ating malaman. Okay, isang comment ko yun. Pangalawa, did I get it right? Na yung mga storm kadalasan ay nagsisimula sa eastern part. Is that correct? At kung correct, why?
Sige po. Yung dito po sa eastern part ng Philippines, opo, dyan po nabubuo yung mga bagyo. And the reason for that ay mainit yung karagatan dyan. Also, nandyan yung tinatawag na monsoon trough. So yung monsoon trough, siya yung parang birthplace ng mga bagyo dahil generally naka-low pressure yung area. So pag may low pressure area ka, kumbaga konti na lang yung kailangan para magkaroon ka ng disturbance. So kaya dyan nag-i-start yung disturbance sa low pressure kasi low yung buong region eh. And then once na nag-start yung low pressure with some other factors, pwede siyang lumakas tapos nagiging bagyo. So kadalasan dyan nagagaling.
Alright. Final question siguro ito. What makes Christine different from other typhoons? Pagkat yung Christine, galit ako dyan dahil yung library ko pinasok ng tubig ang dami kong librong talagang hindi na pinakinabangan. Why Christine is different from the rest?
Yes, very different po, especially nung nagpaulan siya sa Camarines, and by the way, unprecedented amount of rainfall. It was actually around 300 to 400 kilometers away. So malayo siya. So mostly dahil sa shear. So sa direksyon ng hangin sa near the surface at saka sa itaas, iba yung direksyon ng hangin. So nag-shear yung ulan papunta sa southwest si Christine. So si Christine medyo malayo-layo pa siya sa Philippine Sea. Then all of a sudden, kumbaga natulak yung mga clouds papunta sa Camarines area. And ganoon din nung lumapit siya, natulak sa yung edge ng periphery niya sa may Batangas. So yun yung kakaiba doon na ang iniisip natin kadalasan na ang pinakamalakas sa ulan ay malapit sa sentro ng bagyo, which is true generally speaking. Pero ito pong kay Christine, dahil sa certain wind conditions, nalipat niya yung lakas ng ulan.
Jerry, meron ka hindi sinagot kanina. Saan nagagaling yung pondo ninyong napakalala?
Okay. So ako po personally, nakadalawang Fisher DOST po ako na project. Okay. So doon ko po nakuha yung computer, essentially.
Thank you very much. Maraming salamat.
Maraming salamat din po, Academician Ruben. Mapatabok tayo sa question po ni Sir Toby Tamayo. Okay. Sir Toby?
Yeah. Can you hear?
Yes, sir.
Po.
Okay. Good afternoon, Dr. Jerry. Your presentation is so informative. Thank you so much. Now, I live here in La Union, Region 1, no? And there's, up to this very day, a lot of questions arose due to this typhoon that hit us last August. The Typhoon Emong. This typhoon already leaving the country na, nagdumaan na, then it curved downward. As soon as it hit Pangasinan, yung nasa parallel ng Pangasinan, it recurved back. Bumalik ulit. But this time, it went through, hindi na masyado napansin kasi yung Emong but the devastation here in 5 towns of La Union was severe. Ang nangyari, when I was in touch with people in Dasol, in Pangasinan, dumaan muna, doon pumasok. And apparently, ang prediction nung bagyo na yun was signal number 2 lang. By the time it hit us in La Union, there's 5 towns, Bawang hanggang Bacnot, hanggang Luna. It was already signal number 4. Now I know it's rare for typhoons to form on the western side. Now, with this situation, yung rapid intensification na sinabi mo kanina, what fueled Emong, Typhoon Emong, from 2 to 4 within such a short given time? The last bulletin was 10 o'clock in the evening. It was signal number 2. But by the time it went in and hit Pangasinan, it was 3. But by the time it hit La Union, it was already 4. Siyempre, wala kaming mga bundok dito direct. Yeah. So, what can you say about that? How would that take place in such a given time? At saka ba't limang bayan lang? Hindi na dumaan sa iba pang South bayan ng La Union?
Yeah. So I remember po si Emong. And very strange. Hindi naman sobrang rare na nabubuo sa South China Sea, West Philippine Sea ang mga bagyo. Pero si Emong, ang strange sa kanya is that it formed very near land na, tapos napaka-short ng lead time, and then nag-rapid intensification. Most of the TCs that undergo rapid intensification ay nasa Eastern Philippines, so sa Philippine Sea. dahil mainit talaga yung karagatan doon. So, but I believe in the past few years, even the West Philippine Sea, South China Sea, Central South China Sea, ang init. So yun talaga, it's the warmth of the ocean. And if we compare just 10 years ago yung sea surface temperature, masyadong malayo. Ang layo na ng tinaas ng mga temperatura ng karagatan. So it's really that. And of course, that would be, I think, the major point, yung init ng karagatan. But another thing is, it's just a confluence of yung wind na it's not shearing, hindi niya pinahina yung bagyo. Kasi it's most of the time, it's the shearing. So nung tumama na siya, after going inland for a few tens of kilometers, dumating yung shear. And that's the reason why all of a sudden bigla siyang humina. It's not really, tama po kayo, it's not really the land or the mountains or what. It's the shearing. So yung environment mismo, pinahina siya agad-agad. But only after, yun nga po, matamaan yung ibang parts ng Pangasinan and La Union.
Naku, salamat po Sir Dr. Jerry Dod. So malaking factor po pala is yung temperatura ng dagat para magkaroon ng RI or rapid intensification. So ngayon mapunta po tayo sa question po naman ni Marvin Tejada. So hi Doc, can you describe kung ang weather forecasting po natin ay enough to increase, yun po accuracy po ba ng ating weather forecasting is enough para po mapredict yung mga weather disturbances sa bansa?
So in terms of yung forecasting ng medyo matagal-tagal, like 3 days, 4 days, 5 days, ang basis talaga niya ay yung global measurements. So not local. Kasi kailangan natin makita kung ano yung nangyayari sa malayo before natin malaman ano yung nangyayari dito. So like for example, habagat. So kung habagat, hindi lang naman dito nangyayari yung habagat. Yung habagat nanggagaling yan from Indian Ocean pa. So that means we also need to know kung ano yung nangyayari sa Indian Ocean and so on. No? So ang kadalasan ng global models or global forecasting is really based on satellite kasi si satellite nakikita niya yung kabuuan eh. On the other hand, kung ang tanong naman ay yung quick na, say for example, 1 day observation, half a day na ang tawag doon ay nowcasting, then very important to have itong mga radar and so on kasi up to some point lang yung magagawa ng model. Pagdating ng certain point, hindi na niya talaga kayang makuha. Just like yung kung taga Metro Manila kayo, yung naalala niyo isang Monday na bigla na lang umulan ng pagkalakas-lakas ng isang tanghali, di ba? So yun, hindi siya nakuha ng kahit na anong model. Pero kung tinitignan yung with radar and so on, pwede siyang makita ng few hours before at the very least. So kumbaga short lead time but still may lead time, no? But yeah, so of course importante pa rin yung measurements sa local kasi we can study it later on para next time mas alam natin yung nangyayari. In that sense, it will improve forecasting. Pero as to the model forecast, hindi siya gaano makaka-improve.
Doc, question ko lang po. Ito pong ating mga localized or isolated thunderstorm o rain shower, bakit po siya nagiging madalas? And most of the time, mas magrabe pa po yung kanyang epektong baha kumpara po sa mga typhoon na dumadaan.
Yeah, so actually strange yung sa Quezon City nung isang Lunes din yun eh. Lunes. Tama ba? Yung umulan ng pagkalakas-lakas sa bumaha sa may circle and so on. So ano yun? Hindi siya normal unang-una. So sobrang lakas ng ulan na yon. Kasi ganito, pagka maliit yung system ng pinanggagalingan ng ulan, mahirap siyang ma-forecast dahil mabilis siyang sumulpot, mabilis siyang mawala. So yung nagpaulan sa QC one time, maliit siyang system kasi QC lang actually bumuhos yung ulan. Sa Manila, which is nandun ako, konti lang yung ulan. Umulan din pero hindi ganun kalala. So pag ganun maliit na system, and by maliit, we mean a few kilometers lang yung lapad ng cloud. Para yung ano yung analogy ko dyan, yung pag tumingin ka sa kumukulong tubig, di ba may mga sumusulpot na bula? So, kaya ba nating hulaan kung saan susulpot yung bula? Medyo mahirap hulaan yun eh. So ito parang kumbaga, parang isipin nyo na ito yung fluid, itong atmosphere natin, tapos bigla may susulpot na bula, 1 kilometer, 2 kilometers wide. Tapos siya yung magiging cloud, magpapabagsak ng tubig. So mahirap ma-predict kung saan siya lalabas. We can predict na nauulan ng thunderstorm. That can be done. Pero when and where exactly and how much rain it has na ibabagsak, hindi talaga kaya. Kahit pumunta kayo sa US, sa Japan, sa China, pag yung summer season doon, tapos yung thunderstorm din, di rin nila nahuhulaan, na-predict, hindi doon hula, no? Di rin nila na-predict. So, lagi ko naririnig na sinasabi sa US, dito sa amin, galing ng forecasting. Kung sinabing ulan, ganun talaga, ganun. Actually, hindi. Siyempre, yung kumbaga parang may bias din yan di ba? May bias din yan at saka yung trust mo dun sa Pero pag tinignan natin yung statistical na skill score niya di ba? Using data, ganun. Mahirap talaga pag yung mga thunderstorm, lalo na kung maliit na thunderstorm.
Oh, thank you po sa pagsagot, Doc Jerry. Napansin ko lang po, kanina po ay nagkataas po ng kamay si Sir Cesar. Sir Cesar, para po kayong question?
Yeah.
Yes, sir.
Dr. Jerry, thank you very much for an interesting and informative presentation. Ang tanong ko, baka hindi appropriate, pero tinitingnan ko lang, tinitingnan din ba ninyo ang impact ng inyong studies sa magsasaka at mangingisda, or is it through DRRM?
Okay. So kung ako po, hindi po So naka-focus ako talaga kung ano yung nasa taas. Pero I believe that there are a lot of yung in the context of climate change na tumitingin din po nung sa magsasaka. And I work with some other groups or teams na sa farmers yung But me personally, hindi po.
Okay, sige. Kasi ang alam ko niya, normally from the weather predictions, punta sa disaster risk management Ang hindi ko lang alam nga, kasi my experience is that yung Coast Guard will tell the fishermen, huwag na kayo lumabas and all that, But I'm wondering, yung mga magsasaka naman, yung lakas ng baha at saka yung namamatay yung mga tanim nila sa baha. So I'm just wondering, is there some sort of possible coordination? Okay, that's it. Thank you.
Maraming salamat din po. Ngayon po, madako po naman tayo sa question po ni CM Serapika. Sir, welcome po.
Okay, thank you. Actually, you touched on it, Jerry, on the question of prediction of intense rainfall. And I was in the US for 25 years, and I always kind of associate our lack of capability from having less Doppler radar capacity. Am I right to assume that? Kasi sa US, indeed, almost counties can afford a Doppler radar for themselves. So their thunderstorm directions as well as potential lightning strikes are kind of on the minute, on the go. Whereas here in the Philippines, we only have several Doppler radars that are capable of coordinating, triangulating, and providing enough data for you to even predict lightning directions. I know Cross is doing some work on using AI and some of our GPUs in NEC. Pero clearly, if you were given a bucket of cash to put up Doppler radar or use Doppler radar by the boatload, saan mo ilalagay? And how would it help the metropolis, especially Manila, with all the flooding? Maglalagay ka ba sa Marikina? Maglalagay mo sa Sierra Madre? O ilalagay mo sa... Meron na tayo sa Tagaytay. Of course, I pass through it in Tagaytay every time. But saan mo ilalagay, and how would it allow you to be more accurate in your prediction?
So yung doon po muna sa US. Familiar po ako doon sa radar na nila, and sobrang baba ng latency in 3 to 4 minutes, nandyan na agad yung data sa app. So I think yung isang magaling sa US na nagawa nila is yung parang seamless from the forecast to the observation. So you have a forecast na from 3 days, 2 days, 1 day, and then once it's already about to happen, nag-ship papunta doon sa radar na ano, and it's almost like isang story lang siya. So hindi siya kailangan hanapin sa iba't ibang website or whatever. So yung seamless prediction, yan ano yan, laging isa yan sa topic of research ng any country in the world na doing forecasting. So dito sa atin, I suppose na hindi siya ganun ka seamless. That's the thing. Second, yung sa radar, very important in terms of observation. So may mga radar, like for example, kung bagyo, titignan natin, then yung sa G1, for example, makes sense to put there. Sa Batanes, meron din sa Bicol region, sa Camarines meron, and then sa Aurora, Kasiguran meron din. So talagang east side, and yung mga radar na yon should be yung mga long range, like 400 kilometers away pwede makita. So parating yung bagyo, so we can see the dynamics ng ano, kasi yung radar has higher resolution generally speaking compared to satellite. Pero kung thunderstorm, medyo may limitations talaga, kasi yung thunderstorm, once sumulpot siya ng say tanghali, 1 or 2 hours ulan na talaga. Yun yung ano. So
alas 10 hanggang alas 12 baha na.
Yeah, yun exactly, di ba? So medyo mahirap talaga, but it would help. Siguro yung kasi ang hirap sa atin din po yung daming bundok. So kasi pag yung radar, hindi niya makita kung may bundok.
Yeah.
Kapag may bundok, yung tawag sa kanya yung ground clutter. So pag maraming ground clutter, parang noise lang siya, hindi siya makita. So that's also one difficulty. So if there's a radar that can, yung hindi plan position indicator, yung hindi umiikot, pero yung naka-concentrate lang, naka-ganito or what, siguro that would help along mountainous regions para hindi gaanong maka-error si bundok. Siguro that would be something, pero mahal kasi ng radar.
Pero kung hihingi rin lang tayo sa ng donasyon, kung itututok ba natin, I've been to one of those subdivisions just outside of puntang Payatas, no? Yung dire-diretso. I forgot what the name of the subdivision is. It would have been ideal to have a projected non-moving radar to make sure that we can see alert na for connecting it to flood control, of course, that flooding will be experienced within hours because of this. Kasi yun I use weather.com to look at radar every day here, just to see where the rainfall is coming in. But you're right, it's not the resolution is not very good, but at least on the hour, I know kung parating na, and then there's a dark cloud coming. May parating. But definitely from a rainfall, yung sinasabi ni Mahar sa akin na the rate was even more than Ondo in the last 2 hours of that Saturday event. Those should have been detected, or wish we could detect those to alert them, get out of the way, because babaha dyan within the next 2 hours. Parang ganon.
So by the way po, I heard from Pag-asa na meron silang soft loan from the Finnish government na bibili ng 4 na radars.
Yeah. Yun yung usapan ngayon kung saan ano ba talaga yung makakatulong. Kasi one thing is putting it in the far-flung to predict, pero it's the high-density population that suffers. And we are the one paying taxes, and we should be the one actually benefiting from the investment on radar detection. Para hindi naman, kasi nakakasira talaga ng kotse, nakakasira ng bahay, nakakasira ng kabuhayan. And the impact, nothing against agriculture, the destruction of the floods in the Philippines, especially in the Metro Manila, Calabarzon area, has not been fully quantified. But if you really calculate that, it's in the billions. The same way, traffic a day is 4 billion a day. These floods actually slow down commerce and businesses. Productivity goes down. If you quantify that, that's also in the billions in a day. So I wish you can do some sort of calculation to justify that the investment is worthwhile. Alam ko mahal, pero I've been in the US, I've been in New York, I've been in Philadelphia. Between that whole corridor of DC to Washington to Boston, they really make it sure that they warn ahead in advance, because the sheer amount of either flooding, fires is very economically disastrous. I wish we could do that in the region where the highest density of people and businesses and cars are. That is this region 4A and of course NCR. Yun lang. But sana Jerry, susunod na mayroon ng quantification na itong bagyong to, binahaan Manila 3 billion yung gastos from productivity alone. Yun lang. Thank you.
Salamat po, CM. So papunta po tayo ngayon sa question dito sa ating Q&A box. So, Dr. Jerry, sabi po dito, base daw po sa historical observation ng ulan ng Pilipinas, sa palagay niyo po ba, should we try hydro projects to develop since hydro is one of the REs being considered?
Hydro for electricity.
Hydro energy po. Opo.
Yeah, definitely.
Galing sa typhoon.
Yeah, oo. I think there's a lot of potential. Also, daming tubig di ba? Sayang yung tubig. Yun yung ano. So, from a water management perspective or, getting energy, extracting energy from water, talagang kasi daming tubig.
Opo. Ito naman po galing po kay Alfred Jason Inahe. Has there been any studies done on the chemical profile of typhoon rainfall or ocean salinity, and if there is any association we can draw from the said characteristic? We might be looking at the physics of typhoon right now, but maybe the answer is in the chemistry. So sir, meron po ba daw kaugnayan o study ang chemical composition ng typhoon sa kanyang intensity?
Yeah, so for example, yung isotope ng tubig, may mga studies yan. So for example, yung pag meron tayong enhanced habagat, just like yung kay Karina or the 2012-2013 habagat. So kung ganon, so may mga studies before na tinignan yung bagyo na nasa Okinawa, tapos tinignan yung ulan, water isotope, and the water isotope has a signature of water coming from Indian Ocean, halimbawa. So, ibig sabihin, ang bagyo, hindi lang siya fino-fuel ng tubig sa ilalim niya pag nasa karagatan. Fino-fuel din siya ng tubig or water vapor na nanggaling from far-flung places like Indian Ocean, di ba? So, may mga ganon. But, yeah, that's one aspect. Pero yung hindi naintindihan gaano is yung ano yung nangyayari doon sa eye wall ng bagyo. Kasi wala tayong gaanong reconnaissance mission, yung ibig sabihin eroplano na pupunta sa bagyo tapos maglalagay ng instrument, maghuhulog ng instrument. Sa US, every bagyo meron kasi yung military ng US ginagawa yon. Dito, recently, Hong Kong Observatory ginawa siya sa isang bagyo. Recently, yung Japan, ginawa siya noong 2018. May plan this year gawin. Pero I heard ang isang flight is 50 million yen, which is 20 million pesos isang flight para pumunta ron, maghulog ka ng drop zones yung tawag, no? Tapos babalik. So yung 2018 galing Clark, lumipad papuntang yung doon sa bagyo. So really expensive, di siya magawa. Parang nagtatry mag-coordinate yung Asian countries. China mayaman, di ba? Japan mayaman. Pero even with kahit na mayaman sila, parang ang hirap pa rin kasi mahal pa rin talaga. So I think yun yung kakulangan natin compared sa mga hurricanes sa US, no? In terms of understanding. But hopefully, in the future, di ba, magawa yan with drones, halimbawa.
Po, salamat po, Doc Jerry. Ito po, panghuling tanong po kay Redentor Buetre. So ano po daw ang role o papel ng Coriolis force sa TC at kapag po amihan, yung TC trajectory ay hindi nakakataas pagpasok sa PAR?
Okay. So yung Coriolis is one ingredient ng mga tropical cyclones. Kaya walang tropical cyclone na nabubuo sa may equator. So kailangan around 5 degree latitude. So mabubuo yan sa may bandang Mindanao, at least ka-level ng Mindanao, or sa south naman ka-level ng around Darwin, Australia. So sa north ng Australia. So yun yung and definitely kaya siya umiikot, kaya spiral yung motion because of Coriolis force. As to the amihan, tama. Mas maraming tumatamang bagyo tuwing amihan season. October, November ang pinakamaraming landfall TC count dito sa atin, no? Yan ang reason dyan ay dahil dun sa tilt ng mundo, di ba yung nagtitilt yung mundo tapos yung araw tumatapat sa southern hemisphere kapag yun nga, amihan season. So dahil dito, nagkakaroon ng high pressure sa Pacific kaya hindi makaakyat yung mga bagyo. So itong high pressure na to, pinipigilan niyang mag-north yung mga bagyo and ang tendency is they become westward yung movement ng mga bagyo. So tumatama sa Pilipinas kadalasan.
Ayun po. So, mapunta po tayo sa question po ni Sir Ike.
Mayroon ako tanong sa chat box. Can you read it? May na boses ko eh.
Saan po?
Alin po rito, Sir?
Okay, I'll try. What do you mean by blade? Do you mean rack?
Opo. Rack po.
Okay. Could you use view of cluster for computation?
Yes, definitely the larger the cluster, the more available resources, the better po yun. But unfortunately, like for example, dito po sa atin, si ASTI, meron po siyang cluster. But yeah, medyo may pila siya because there's a lot of people using it. So yun yung may mga limitations sa ganun po. Si Pag-asa meron silang isang maliit na cluster that they use for their daily runs, halimbawa po.
Anong machine? Mainframe na ba yan? O supercomputer?
Hindi po. Parang more of a cluster, HPC.
High power, high performance. No?
Opo.
Last question, can you predict storms and rainfall so it will not coincide with crop harvest?
Okay. So may iba't ibang rainfall prediction. So there's a weather prediction which is around 5 days lead time. So from now to 5 days, yun yung parang weather prediction. And then there's a long-range weather prediction which is from around 1 week from now to 2 weeks. However, medyo mababa yung accuracy nun. And then we have yung tawag doon ay S2S, sub-seasonal to seasonal. So that is from around 2 weeks to 1 month. Yung seasonal to sub-seasonal forecast, daming gumagawa niyan. To a certain point, parang more of a qualitative forecast siya than a quantitative. And then you have the seasonal forecast which extends from 1 month from now up to siguro mga 6 to 9 months. But again, hindi na siya daily, hindi na yung daily resolution. The forecast would be kumbaga in the month of, say for example, in the month of November, what rain do we expect in the month of December? So gano'n na siya, monthly na siya. So yun po yung current na kumbaga way to forecast from very short, a few days until few months from now.
Thank you.
Maraming salamat po, Sir Ike. So, Doc Jerry, pang last na question po, sa palagay niyo po ba, sa nakikita niyo po, mas aayos po ba ang ating weather forecasting? Mas maayos po ba ang mga sakto na typhoon po natin? O mas nakikita niyo na mas lalo pa siyang lalala eventually?
Yeah, I think weather forecasting, yes, will definitely improve. It has been improving. And yung lagi ko sinasabi na yung forecast ni Pag-asa, mga bagyo, ganon, is not actually far off from, say, Japan Meteorological Agency na si JMA, 10 times more people, 10 times more budget yun na kumpara kay Pag-asa. More than 10 times actually yung budget. Pero hindi ganon kalayo. So, kumbaga hindi tayo nahuhuli sa forecasting, yung methodologies and so on. Of course, lagi ko sinasabi, kulang sa tao. We can use more people, not only sa forecast itself, pero yung research. Kasi yung research eventually will translate to applications. And sometimes yun yung hindi makita, di ba? Ay, ayaw bigyan ng pera kasi hindi makita na ano ngayon pag nag-research ka. Pero eventually it will trickle towards application talaga. And then, ano ba? Yeah, I think it will improve even with the equipment that we have. Of course, the more equipment, the better. Pero even if we don't have more, di ba, may mga satellites kasi na free na siya eh. Yung Japanese satellite, free to get yung mga data nila and so on. So yeah, will definitely improve. Pero ang isang limitation, yun nga, yung tao to do more research. Second, yung sa communication part. So sometimes you have the best forecast and so on, pero sabihin mo sa tao, pagdating sa tao, hindi naintindihan. So, kasi ang daming language, di ba? Iba't ibang lengguwahe, iba't ibang kultura, even yung sinasabi ko, even yung religious experiences ng tao or yung mga paniniwala, di ba? We have different lenses in looking at reality, and yung forecast, pag dumating information, iba-iba yung ibig sabihin for different people eh. So, kailangan talaga na maraming tao to do the translating, not only the language, pero yung translate yung culturally, di ba, kung paano maintindihan ng tao. Yeah, so yung forecasting itself, it's there, pero yung communicating it, I think it's a more difficult problem to tackle.
So, maraming salamat po, Doc Jerry.
Pwede pa pahabol.
Sige po, Sir Ike.
Dr. Bagtasa, instead of cluster, can you use the cloud?
Pero marami pong gumagawa niya, pero parang ang mahal po kasi, yun yung yung budget. Halimbawa yung budget to buy a computer, running it for you can use a computer for yung sa akin po, yung mga ibang computer ko may 10 taon na eh. So ginagamit ko pa rin po. That budget, if we were to use Amazon, halimbawa, ay 6 months lang. So after 6 months, ubos agad yung budget. So compared to, di ba, you can use it for 10 years. Parang hindi siya cost efficient.
By the way, mayroong supercomputer sa AIM nakita mo na yon?
Hindi pa po.
Send me your email, I might connect you.
Sige po. Thank you.
Baka may downtime sila. Thank you.
Maraming salamat po, Sir Ike. So ngayon po tayo po ay napaunlakan po ni Dr. Jerry sa isa naman na napakagandang episode na kung saan nagpapakita na ang science and technology ang sagot sa mga issue po na ating kinakaharap, lalo ng mga isyong pangkalikasan. So sa mga tagapakinig po natin ngayon, sa mga kabataan, tulad po ng aming advocacy, tayo po ay magsulong na mag-aral at tumungo po sa landasin ng science. Kulang po ang mga scientifico ng ating bansa. At tulad nga po sinabi ni Dr. Jerry, kailangan po ng research, mataimtimang research upang mapagpatuloy po ang pag-aaral ng mga isyong nakapalibit po dito po sa ating usapin tungkol sa klima. And with that note, maraming salamat po pagsama po sa amin ngayong hapon. At makita-kita po tayo muli next week, same place, same time, same channel. And have a great weekend.
Thank you. Bye.